this is an official warning that you cease and desist. If you do not cease and desist, we are going to prosecute you criminally. They sign it. They have you sign it. This is not required. We are the Armed Attorneys. Today we are talking a little bit more about the ATF's new rule making potentially all of us into unlawful sellers whom they wish to prosecute. We're going to talk a little bit about what the ATF does in lieu of prosecution, whether or not we think their policies are going to change, and who is going to get this softer treatment and who is going to be prosecuted. But before we get started, show your support for the Second Amendment by hitting the like button.
And so to inform the discussion just a little bit, we look prior to the passage of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act that happened June the 25th, 2022. And we had clients who,
Thanks, John Cornyn.
Yeah, John.
Sorry, we can't talk about it without me being like.
But we had, we had clients who, let's say they had repeated sales or dispositions of firearms. They were, by all means, meeting the definition for livelihood and profit. What we saw most of the time was that, if multiple guns that they sold showed up at crime scenes, and this happens, let's say you sell 5 guns, and one shows up in Mexico, and one shows up at a crime scene in Arizona, and one is found on a felon in New York City. Well, guess what? The ATF is going to trace those things.
I'll find you.
And when they see that they all go to the same person, they're going to say, this person is selling and moving a lot of guns.
Yeah.
So maybe we need to look at whether they are operating as an unlicensed dealer.
Right. Well, and not even that, too. I mean, I feel like I used to, when I say used to, because I haven't gotten this call in a little while, I would talk to someone who sold a whole bunch of guns to one particular convicted felon, probably, who was then going to resell them to his network of other people who wanted them off the black market. And so when the police actually get that middle guy and they're like, aha, Richard Hayes is the one who bought that guy all those guns, then they get you that way too.
Yeah, but what brings this discussion up a little bit is we have the ATF making moves on the rulemaking authority when it comes to what constitutes engaging in the business as a licensed dealer or unlicensed firearms dealer. Now, this came out of the change from the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. We now have some amending going on to the Code of Federal Regulation to kind of mimic, except the ATF clearly overstepped its authority and bait and switched, and we have lots of videos on that. We'll link those into the description below. But I guess ultimately the question becomes, because I've been talking to a lot of people who say, hey, if I sell one gun, are they going to get mad at me? Or are they going to try to come after me? Because I'd say most folks, let's say you're a casual hobbyist, maybe you sell a dozen guns over your entire lifetime, or you trade, or you give them to family members or friends or whatever. And so for most folks, not those folks who are dealing like 50 identical handguns at a singular gun show without a license.
Right.
I'm not talking about you. But for those folks who engage in casual transactions where these things might end up at crime scenes or traced, we're trying to think about what is enforcement going to look like for these folks.
Right. And, what it used to look like was a warning letter.
Yeah.
Which we have an example here of one of the older warning letters to show you.
Yeah, so I say we talk through the letter and then talk about what we think might look a little bit different. But I think for most folks, for our casual folks, it might look like a warning letter.
Do you? See, I am less confident.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe that now, like, granted, I have sold one gun.
I mean, you're just basing it off of an airport administrator in Arkansas.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm basing it off of. But like, I mean, I'll tell you, I've sold one gun.
He did not.
No, he did not get a warning letter.
As far as we can tell, it did not get a warning letter.
I guess we don't know that for certain, but his warning letter came in the
9mm bullets.
Yeah, no, that's not good. But like, I've sold one gun in my life. Like, do I think I'm gonna get a warning letter? No. But let's say I had 2 handguns and I sold them both so that I had the cash to go buy something different. I'm not sure that I would maybe I'd get a warning letter, or maybe I'd just be prosecuted. I'm just not confident.
Yeah, so let's read through the language of what the old letter looks like, talk about what might be a little bit different.
Warning notice of unlicensed firearms dealing in violation of federal law. Recently, your participation in the purchase, sale, and or other transfer of firearms has come to the attention of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. ATF is responsible for the enforcement of federal firearms laws, and as part of that duty, ATF licenses those persons lawfully dealing in firearms and prevents unlicensed dealing in violation of federal law. We seek the cooperative efforts of the general public in fulfilling this mandate, and that is why we are contacting you on the matter. That makes it sound so much nicer than it
It
really
really
is.
does. Your firearm activity appears to bring you within the definition of a dealer in firearms, as that term is defined by the Gun Control Act. A dealer in firearms is defined as a person who devotes time, attention, and labor in dealing in firearms as a regular course or trade of business with the principal objective of livelihood and profit through the repetitive purchase and resale of firearms. Now, remember, we have gotten rid of the livelihood component, and now we're looking at, are they predominantly motivated to earn a profit?
Right. So, I mean, I can say this paragraph will look substantially different if they create new warning letters for folks.
Yes. So a person convicted of unlawfully engaging in the business of dealing in firearms without a license is a violation of 18 U.S.C. 922A1A and is subject to imprisonment for not more than 5 years and up to a fine of $250,000.
Right. So, and then this goes on just to say, this is an official warning that you cease and desist. If you do not cease and desist, we are going to prosecute you criminally. They sign it. They have you sign it. This is not required. Bear in mind, this is like your naughty boy letter.
Sure.
But there's no legal requirement. You get a naughty boy letter before they actually go after you criminally. But this was, I think, a nice heads up for people generally, rather than just a straight prosecution.
Well, and what makes me hopeful that they use warning letters, I had a client just last week. They had traced 3 firearms to him that he'd purchased, resold. All the time periods were less than a year. That's another thing they don't like. How fast are you acquiring the gun? How fast are you getting rid of the gun? But they showed up, 2 in Mexico, 1 at a crime scene here in Texas, and he got a warning letter. And, you know, the law and the change in what constitutes engaging in the business and dealing in firearms, I mean, that changed, like I said, back in June 2022. So that's why I'm partially hopeful. But, you know, we also have our use case, or I don't want to say use cases, but extreme cases that show that maybe people won't get a warning.
I hope you're right. I mean, we can only speculate at this point, right? And I do think that you and I are going to be people who will hear very quickly what is happening. We are
Yes.
in a very we are in a situation unlike most lawyers, and a situation unlike most gun tubers, right?
Right.
Because we are both. And so I think we will hear very quickly what is happening to people. And when we do, we will certainly tell you. But this is, at this point, wild speculation based on an uncertain state of the world.
Yeah. But you might be asking then, okay, I get a letter from the ATF, and we saw letters with FRTs, we saw letters with bump stocks. Maybe we're going to see letters with this change in the definition of what constitutes engaging in the business. What should a person do should they receive one of these letters?
Well, I would say contact an attorney.
Yes.
First of all. But then we're going to take a look. We're going to talk to you about what you did, about what you didn't do.
I think it's just going to depend. You know, if you, for example, got an FRT letter and let's say you don't have an FRT, well, guess what? And for those folks, for example, I'd say, okay, it's okay to tell the ATF you don't have an FRT.
Right.
Right. But each case is going to be different and very dependent on your circumstances. So it's really important to talk to a lawyer.
Absolutely.
But we hope you enjoyed this discussion. If you did, consider subscribing, hitting that like button, and help us fight the anti-2A algorithm by sharing this video.
And please, as always, question and comment for us below. Until next time, we're the arms attorneys.